Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 16th, 2019 meeting of the Dover Area School Board. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Mrs. Benko, could we have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Britton?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Deschaux?
Here.
Mr. DeLauder?
Here.
Mr. Eifert?
Here.
Mr. Emig?
Here.
Mrs. Herman?
Here.
Mrs. Maley? Here. Mr. Rawhauser?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Tonight, we start with our student board representatives. We have Gigi presenting tonight.
For the elementary report, all students in grades 3 through 6 participated in a PSSA pep rally this week. The ELA PSSA started today. All students received a free breakfast complement of the food services department. All kindergarten through second grade students will have the opportunity to attend flight school at the Appel on April 25th. For the secondary report, Dover Intermediate School students and staff participated in Pennies for Patients to raise money to support leukemia research. We are proud to share that the intermediate school raised $10,000, $343.07. The total surpassed the 2019 goal of $8,000. May 6th is the annual 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. This year, there are 267 students in the trip. The VEDM Club held a building assembly explaining the VEDM program and the I've Got Your Back support. Mike Smith, the skater dude, surprised the students with a visit and assembly prior to working with the high school students in the afternoon. Lessons at the IS and the high school utilize his video series to support student empowerment. DHS held its mini-thon on April 6th and 7th. The event raised over $37,000 for the Four Diamonds Fund. DHS will host its junior-senior prom at Round Top on Saturday, May 11th. The high school is currently administering NOCTI exams for their CTE completers. In early May, the high school will begin administering advanced placement exams. The high school will host a number of award events in the coming weeks. NHS inductions on April 29th, Eagle Excellence Awards on May 1st, FFA Banquet on May 7th, Senior Scholastic Awards on May 15th. And for the fine arts, Dover Intermediate School Spring Band Concert will be held at the high school on May 2nd at 7 p.m. Dover Intermediate School Spring Choral Concert will be held at the high school on May 9th at 7 p.m. The high school Spring Band Concert will be held on April 27th at 7 p.m. The high school Spring Choral Concert will be held on May 18th at 7 p.m. And in athletics, Spring Sports Awards Night will be held on Monday, May 20th at 6 p.m. in the high school main gym.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from our board members tonight? Okay, thank you, Gigi. Next up are our presentations and celebrations. Our first one is our Scholastic Arts Gold Key Award recognition. I believe Mr. Wassler, you can speak to that.
I'm going to ask Mrs. Nay to join me because she might be able to add a little more about each project. And also, Mrs. Nay helps facilitate this program annually. We've been very fortunate in the last 2 years to have students receive a national award. So tonight we're able to recognize 3 students. And our first student up is going to be Chloe Stevens. So Chloe competed in the category of poetry. She wrote a collection of poetry called What's Your Pot of Gold? And she received an honorable mention at the regional awards program. Next, we're going to recognize Ethan Snyder. Ethan Snyder received a regional gold key in the fashion category. Ethan completed a crocheted jumpsuit. Correct?
I sent a picture of that to you, and through email, so I didn't know if you wanted to share it with other people, and I don't know whose computer is projecting right now.
It's mine.
Okay. If you want to see Ethan's jumpsuit, I can quickly send you the photo. Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
While we're doing Ethan's jumpsuit photo, I have a long list for the next one to go through. I do want to start by kind of recognizing the program. The Scholastic Arts and Writing Awards are a national program. Just for some comparison, there are over 340,000 student entries that were submitted this year. What happens is students then compete at a regional level. They are judged regionally, and then awards are given, and then certain students are elevated to national competition, which brings us to Kaylee Renfrew. So if you'd like to stand up, there she is over there. So outside of that competition, Kaylee received, and I want to add this because we got this as an addition, she won the first place award in the Martin Library Poetry Contest this year. On top of that, she won a regional silver key in poetry. She won a regional gold key for photography. And then on top of that, she was an American Visions nominee for the region. What happens is in the region, the judges select what are known as 10 best in show. So 5 from the arts, 5 from writing, and then those are sent for the national level to New York City where they're judged. And one student from each region is named an American Visions Award winner medalist and is then recognized at Carnegie Hall in June as a national award winner. And Kaylee, in that category for photography, received the National Gold Key and was named the Regional American Visions winner for our area. And if you want to look behind over here, that is Ethan's jumpsuit that he crocheted. And also wore to class.
60 hours?
A lot of time. And on top of that, just for another piece here, both Ethan and Kaylee's work is on display through May at the State Museum in Harrisburg. So that is the picture you saw there, that is it on the mannequin. And then Kaylee's photography is also on display at the State Museum through May as well. So congratulations to those students on these awesome recognitions.
Yeah.
We have highly collectible limited edition Dover School District tumblers for each of those students, so if they want to come up. Okay, next up we have Mrs. Huffnagel with Weigelstown Elementary Responsive Classroom.
This summer, we had the privilege of sending several members of the K-6 faculty to a responsive classroom training in Maryland. And it was a several-day training, and we learned so very much. I got to go along. It was a great, great training. And the people there got really excited, and we formed a district committee. And from the district committee, we formed subcommittees in each building to get responsive classroom rolling. So I'm going to turn it over to our responsive classroom team at Weigelstown Elementary. And they're going to be running a morning meeting, but for our purposes, it'll be a good evening meeting here this evening. And we have lots of Weigelstown Elementary friends here that are super excited to participate in this. So you'll get to see what it looks like. We do this every single morning. So come on out.
Good evening. We are all members of the Weigelstown Responsive Classroom Committee, and my name is Tracy Dellinger. I'm a second grade teacher at Weigelstown.
Crystal Delorfano, kindergarten. Ashley Shatter, third grade. Stephanie Warner, sixth grade.
And we just want to share with you, we have a morning meeting that we do, and we're going to show you with a presentation. But the morning meeting gives us an opportunity to start our classroom off with a community of caring and respectful learners. And we're going to go with our students, our third grade students. Mrs. Ram, oh my gosh. Mrs. Campbell, I'm sorry. Mrs. Campbell and Mrs. Shetter are going to be going in front of you and showing you how the meeting works. Oops.
Can one of you take the microphone? I think it's portable. There you go.
For our greeting, we're going to start with something we call stinky feet. So we're going to take off one shoe and put it in the middle. Okay. Good morning, Rio. Or good evening, Rio.
Oh, good evening, TJ. Good evening, Nicholas. Good evening, Timmy. Good evening, Avery. Good evening, Timmy. Good evening, Bella. Good evening, Mr.
Good evening, Bella. Good evening, Kaylee.
Good evening, Miss Campbell. Good evening, Miss Shetter.
Good evening, Kaylee. Good evening, TJ.
Good evening, Miss Shetter. Good evening, Nathan. Nope. What? Good evening, Nicholas. Good evening, Nathan. Good evening,
All right. And for our share, we're going to choose just 3 people. So I want you to think, what makes morning meeting special to you? All right, so I want you to think, what makes morning meeting special? We'll take 3 people. Okay. All right, so we'll take you 3.
that we all get to have fun eating. Morning special because we get to be. To me, morning meeting is special because we all get to be together, like on Mondays and Fridays. We get to share like what we're doing this weekend and what we did.
Thank you. All 3 of those are really important. We're going to play our activity, which is Kosiki, and we're going to have Bella be our guesser. And Bella, how about you stand and face that wall? I'm going to pick one person. Ready? He or she is going to start us off. All right, Bella, you may come in the middle. All right, who is our Kosiki person? TJ. And we're going to have Kaylee read our evening message.
If you want to, she can use one of the microphones up here. If it's not working. Right behind you. You just have to pull it down.
Good evening, readers. We are so proud of your dedication and hard work. During testing, we saw Smarties. Stay focused, mark the right choice, always do your best, recheck your work, take your time. I know you can do it. Accept the best, show what you know. We can't wait to celebrate your knowledge tomorrow. Get a good night's rest. Love, Miss Campbell and Miss Shetter.
And we're going to, thank you. Actually, at the end of the day, we have something called closing circle. And since we're going to be leaving, we're going to end with one thing we do at the end of the day. And Nathan is going to be our person to lead our chant.
The time has come to say goodbye. We learned a lot today. Some of us will go. Some of us will stay.
Some of us will stay.
wanted to say something about this. In education, programs come and programs go. Like within 5 years, you start all over again. This program has been around so long. That I was trained in it back in the 90s, and I loved it. I think it really brings your class together. The children love it. If we didn't do it one morning for some reason, we were running late, they would be really disappointed in it. So I'm so glad to see that everybody got to see what's happening and about what this is all about.
That was wonderful.
And I'd like to add too, and I've had the pleasure of sitting and doing morning meeting, and it is so much fun with the kids. But we are doing this in all of our elementary schools, K to 6. So this is something we've committed to for the social and emotional learning of the kids, and the teachers love it, and we are seeing really great things with it. So yeah, it is something that's great in our elementary school.
Thank you, Raglandstown families, for coming this evening. And go home and get some sleep, children.
Yes, We were going to start our board meetings like that, but we probably wouldn't be able to get our shoes back on. So I think we'll skip that part. Okay, next up, Dr. Wiesling with Live Elementary Technology App presentation.
Thank you very much. As you know, board, we are doing many things with technology and getting one-to-one technology into the hands of all of our teachers and our students. So one of the things that we wanted to highlight for you, which are things that are being done in many of our buildings, most of our buildings, is I wanted to highlight the use of some of the devices, the iPads, and also some of the apps that our teachers and students are using to enhance their instruction. So I'd like to introduce you. I will take no credit for this. The only credit is I know the right people to pick, right, to bring up and demonstrate their knowledge and their skill sets with technology. So I've invited Mrs. Carrie Melhorn, one of our 6th grade teachers, and focuses on math for us at Live Elementary School, and 2 of her fantastic students, Jalen Shu and Bronson Link. Some of you may recognize Jalen Shu from our most recent BizTown and Mrs. Kroom's update. Jalen was sworn in by Representative Seth Grove as the mayor of BizTown last Friday. And actually, her opponent for the mayoral election was Bronson. So do I know who to pick or what? So we're going to highlight some of the technology, and we're going to make it interactive. All of you, if you close your MacBooks, you will see an iPad there for you to use this evening, board members. So go ahead and grab that. So right there, you have in your hands the student full-size iPads that are given to all of our students in grades 3 through 12.
Hi, good evening. So we are presenting about technology in our schools. We just want to let you know how we are using the wonderful devices that you have provided us with. So to start, we're going to start with a bell ringer. So I need you to go to your student iPads, and Jalen and Bronson will be around to help you, and I will be around to help you get logged in. You're going to hit the home button. We're going to start there. So we'll be around. I'm going to talk here. This is our home button. So we're going to hit this. You're going to hit that twice. And they do have stands on the back, so you can sit them up for you. But as I tell my kids, please don't play with them. They will break.
You want to go ahead? You can go around and help them?
And so you're going to go to your Safari, which they can help you. And I can't guarantee what tabs are going to come open right now. That's connected. And in the web address, you're going to go to the web address here, https://thejoinquizzes.com. You're going to type in that code. Now, normally I tell my students no nicknames because I like to know who is putting in the answers, but you are welcome to put in a nickname today. That one's Quizlet.
Just go
code there.
No, but I think
Oh, no, you don't have it. So I can be Bronson 1. It says I'm Bronson 1.
You are, as you load into quizzes, it'll probably have that student's name already because that's what loads when they're going into the quizzes.
So we'll be you.
Mine won't let me. I got that. It wouldn't load at first. I redid it.
Right now it says enter game mode. With that 5755.
I can do it on my phone if it won't load on there.
Huh?
Leave that name or you can space it out.
Well, why would I want
Once you have that code in there, you're gonna enter the name. And I've actually done this as a homework activity, so you're able to start whenever you are ready.
Do you want us to?
And it is actually one of our true bell ringers. So you're gonna be doing some algebraic expressions today. Enjoy.
I need help with that. No, I need help with the algebra. Okay, start. You can start, okay.
By the way, I'll add that the bell ringer is one of our APL strategies that you've heard us talk about all year, the instructional strategies. So the bell ringer is one of those elements that all of our classrooms are using as far as the APL instructional strategies go.
Julie Bradshaw.
So, and board members, while you're playing, I just wanted to mirror over here really quick. So because I did this as a homework, I can go in and see the reports while you're playing, so I can see how accurate you are with your algebraic expressions right now. And I can see as a class how accurate we are.
Hold on. You just want to follow me?
Obviously, I have to go back to see. That was bad.
Look at that, 44.44%. See, I didn't do well. I got
You
4.
try.
You got that one right, too.
Yeah. No.
Should I play again? You're not putting our scores in.
So for those of you in the audience, all of the iPads, they're going through at their own pace and they're seeing all the math questions. And so this is an activating strategy that the students would be doing at the beginning of the class or the course and then as Mrs. Melhort indicated, she's able to track the accuracy of that. So then she uses that data to determine what she needs to reteach or what the data is demonstrating that the students have already mastered, and then she's able to adjust her instruction based on that.
16 divided by h. This is what I got right. Here we go. Oh, I'm at the top. The sum of m and 8. I got it wrong. Now I'm on down. This is 3 and k minus 2. Yeah.
So as I was showing you up here, then we are able to track the data. So on the teacher side, I'm able to track that data. I can see in the lessons what do we need to go back and review. I can pull specific questions that the entire class has struggled on, and we can review those by the end of the week. I can pull them during intervention. But then for the kids, do you want to talk about what it's like from your point of view? Are we rock, paper, scissoring? Is it engaging for you?
Yeah.
That's what I'll get today. So we're going to keep going, though. So as you know, our most common devices that we are using in our classroom, we have our projector and our Apple TV, which I was just mirroring to, and our students are able to mirror through as well, our IWBs, and then we have our iPads, and we also have the keyboards that can attach to it. And these are a few of our favorite things that we use in the classroom. So Google Drive, Kahoot, Pic Collage, Quizlet, which we'll be talking about today, Pear Deck, Nearpod, Goose Chase, Quizzes, Artsonia, Flipgrid. There's so many to choose from, but my two very sixth graders over here, they're gonna come over and they're gonna talk about two of their favorite ones that they've used.
So one of our favorites would be Goose Chase. It is a digital scavenger hunt that we can go around the school and play. It's fun, and the kids like moving around and moving around the building and working with other people. So.
One of my favorites is Quizlet, and it allows the students to work with different people, like maybe they don't hang out with, but they just decide the teams randomly, which we'll be having you do later on. And you can do multiple games in each set. Usually we do like first team to win like 3 in a row, gets like candy or something, and then they change the team so you have an opportunity to work with everybody.
And like you said, we will be doing Quizlet later with you. So then I actually had some of our teachers from all different levels share some things that they've been doing. So our younger teachers that shared some things, like Ms. Bensel, who does kindergarten for us, she had students independently use Pic Collage to classify 2D shapes. So they went around the classroom and took pictures and then had to label it. And it was very independent. She even told me about, this has a lazy pointer, doesn't? This student right here, she couldn't decide between square and triangle, so she labeled it a squangle. So it's very independent, and they can work through that together then. And she also sent me this where her students were using Kahoot and Nearpod to practice spelling words as well. Mrs. Lamb, who's also in kindergarten, she had students take a virtual field trip to the White House using her class set of iPads. And Mrs. Harold had her class make this movie demonstrating the, I think it was the life cycle of plants. I think that's what the lesson was. Are you able to play that then?
The roots suck up water. Flowers make the seeds.
I can't.
Up the water to the leaves.
Sorry.
The leaves make the food. The roots suck up water.
Yeah, it's not playing this out.
That's okay, but I can explain. She said that they used I think it was called Storybook app, something along those lines. So they were able to actually draw the pictures, label it, and give the steps of the life cycle of a plant. And her first graders were able to complete that themselves. I'm not able to click. Yep, okay. So the next one we're going to talk about is a art project that Mrs. Storms had our sixth graders do, where it was a completely digital project from start to finish. So they're going to explain how they got their finished products, and that is Bronson and Jalen's finished products there. Right? Come on up.
So you first had to take a selfie, and then you had to put it into the sketchbook app and outline your picture.
Then you would have to remove the picture, and then you would color what was left of the outline that you did, and you had to paint it according to the color wheel, which we did like opposite sides of the color wheel to make it stand out.
So once you did that, you had to put the 4 pictures in a certain way, however you wanted it, and upload it to Pic Collage.
And then you would take that pic collage and upload it to Artsonia, which is one of the apps the art teacher uses to check our work. And you had to write an artist statement, which was like saying what you did in the project, and a rubric grading yourself on the project, how well you think you did. This is one of the other apps we use. It's Study Island, and there's this one mode, it's called the Study Island Race. And what you do is you have a bunch of questions, and you go by yourself at your own pace, but you want to do them as quickly as possible while still getting them correct, because it's a competition between you and the other students to see who can get the most points for each question. And another thing we like about it is you get to pick some funny nicknames, like food related or like superhero names, before you start it, and that's your name on the leaderboard once you finish.
Which is very interesting at the end when I'm asking, so who is the 20-foot taco and the steel burrito? Things like that.
Another app we like to use is Pear Deck. Pear Deck speeds up the lessons, and it's digital, so you don't have to write down stuff, you just have to type it. It makes it more engaging so that everybody has to answer the question and not just one person answers. You're also able to do the questions in different ways by multiple choice or typing it, sometimes even drawing it.
And then our last one that we have a video of here is an example of Quizlet Live. So you're going to see what it looks like before you actually do it yourselves. So will you play that video too? So what you'll see is that the groups are working in teams. They're all huddled together with their iPads together. And I'll show on the board here, we have the leaderboard as they're working through that. So you're gonna get a set of questions, and Jalen and Bronson have made this for you. It's all about Dover. And you are going to be randomly paired or grouped together, and you're gonna compete against each other. Are you ready? Okay. So you are on the iPads. You'll have to click off the video again. There we go. On your iPads, please go to www.quizlet.live.
Need the code.
Again, it's
Still on the website. Can you go back to the quiz? It was Quizlet.
it's right here at the top then. I can zoom in here. www.quizlet.live, and you're going to be typing in that code.
991-2.
Yes. Yes, I'm you. I get all right, but I don't know that. Okay.
Don't call me late for dinner.
Joining, that's all right. Yep. Yep. I'm good. Yep.
Just put your name.
Yep.
Jane. That's great. Oh, you're Jane.
I hope these are easy questions.
So in a second, I'm going to hit to create the game with all of you. So you're going to have to get up, and you're going to have to find who's in your group. And it's going to be questions, and you're all going to have answers. You have to figure out who has the correct answer. If you get it correct, you get to move on. If you get it incorrect, your team drops back down to 0. Okay? All right. So you guys are going to go find your team. So on your screen, it'll be saying the Mustangs, the Orcas, the T-Rexes, and the Unicorns.
I'm with Terry and
Who's Trey?
You might have to go with your team name.
You're Landon.
You guys are Mustang.
Yeah. Yep. We're missing Trey.
Trey.
Your uniform.
Okay, you got it. Oh, there's it. Okay. I'm Shamrock.
Who's Trey? All right, you better know this. Because I'm Landon.
You're Landon? Okay.
You and me.
I tried to close out before I had it on.
All right. Today we have somebody. So we just
I think so. I think we're a team. I don't know. Who's Trey?
Who's Trey?
Missing Trey. We need Trey.
Oh. Did Trey leave us because it kept?
Now I gotta go find my.
It just changed your team because of we don't have a Trey up there. Is there someone Trey in here? There's still a Trey. Here. Did it shuffle your team? Dream team. Same team, different name? Okay. I'm gonna start anyway. We're gonna see how.
We're starting.
Wait, I don't have my team.
Who's kangaroo?
What's your team name?
Jaden and Jared.
I'm Jaden.
I'm
You're Jaden and Jared.
Who's supposed to have Carrie?
Who's Jared?
I should have known people who were joining us on this one from the audience.
I'm Landon.
So,
I'm now a kangaroo.
there you go. So you guys have to dream together to learn how to spell.
I think that's true.
Huh?
I'm gonna guess to agree.
Right? That's why I graduated high school.
So at the end there, you'll notice as we go through then, it'll bring up their team and then we all celebrate and then they're like, can we play again? And then we reshuffle and then we keep moving around and we can continue practicing. And then I'm able to go through to see what we got right and wrong and where we need to continue to review. So, all right. Now we switch back to one. Thank you. So just to summarize, we just wanted to express about how much we appreciate our devices and the technology that you guys have provided for us. We use it in every aspect of our lesson planning, and we greatly appreciate it, and the kids really enjoy it. So, and then just to thank you, we do have a little video that our first graders made about why Lib is the best. Are we able to turn that volume up?
I'll try.
Okay. You have it muted.
You can earn some reward for being a proud eagle. Last, the food in the cafeteria is so good. That is why Live Elementary is the
coolest school ever.
Because they say they have the coolest principal ever. That's what you missed. No, the one before that did say because the cafeteria food is awesome.
And that is it for us. So thank you so much for your attention and for playing along with our iPads.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a great presentation. And it's obviously, I need a lot of remediation help in the math side of things, so let's get to work on that. Okay, next up we have Mr. Bradshaw and Ms. Roberts with our New Orleans band trip presentation. Music department trip presentation, I should say.
Would you guys like to click through it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So a couple weeks ago, the music department at Dover took a trip to New Orleans. Well, not the whole music department, the band and Renaissance. So on day one, we actually spent pretty much the whole day traveling, which was a little exhausting, but very much worth it. Spent most of the day in the airport or on a plane. But once we arrived in New Orleans, we met at Mardi Gras World, and we actually got to make our own like Mardi Gras masks with glitter, which was really fun. We got to see all of the Mardi Gras floats, and they had a really good dinner for us there too. So that was a very successful day.
That's me. I didn't know I was in them. Yeah, I'm in the top one. So our second day, we went to the Audubon Zoo, the New Orleans Museum of Art, and the Oak Alley Plantation. This was a really cool day because we saw so many excellent things about New Orleans. At the plantation, we had a huge guided tour of the big house, and we had time to tour the slave quarters, and that's a really cool thing to see, like to be able to feel like you're there and understand that history. It's amazing.
Some pictures from the zoo.
Is that Carson? Yeah.
This was the whole group of kids that we took outside the New Orleans Museum of Art. So these are the kids at Oak Alley Plantation.
All right. On our third day, we went to the National World War II Museum to learn a lot that day. Went to the Garden District after that, and the Audubon Aquarium of the Americas. So very full day. At the museum, we watched a movie called Beyond All Boundaries, which is like a kind of an IMAX movie about World War II, where like the seats like shook and like it actually made you feel like you were actually there, which was a really cool experience. Like it was awesome. And then at the aquarium, we also saw another IMAX movie about Hurricane Katrina and learned more about like the wetlands and the environment surrounding New Orleans, which was really unexpected but also very cool. So. Museum. The Garden District?
Yeah, sure. So to shed some light on these pictures, these are different sites that we saw in the Garden District of New Orleans. So the picture on the left, that is the house that Eli and Peyton Manning grew up in, which is pretty cool. The house on the right, that's Sandra Bullock's house. And yeah, one of her houses. And the picture in the middle, that is a picture of one of the above-ground cemeteries that you see all across New Orleans. So again, just to be able to be there and see that, it's really amazing. The culture, it's cool. Yeah.
All right. On our fourth day in New Orleans, we went to the New Orleans Jazz Museum, which was this is probably my favorite day because there was a lot of music this day. We went to the French Market after that to just check out what there was to see, and I don't know how to pronounce that word. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce either of those words. But also on day 4, that was probably the most important day because we performed that day. So not only did we get to learn about music that day, but we got to make our own music for everyone to see, which was pretty awesome. Both the bands and choirs performed to a large crowd at the Washington Artillery Park. And after our performance, we enjoyed another dinner on the Natchez steamboat, which was definitely my favorite part because we got to see the Dukes of Dixieland perform, which they were professionals and totally blew most of us away. It was totally like the best part of the trip for me. Yeah. Jazz Museum.
So, Matt, the picture, you sent me the picture on the right, so what was that?
Yeah, okay, so this picture on the right, that's actually Louis Armstrong's first cornet, and being a trumpet player, I thought that was pretty cool, so I snapped a picture of it. Like, the Jazz Museum was just really cool, because, like, New Orleans, it's the home of jazz, and to be able to see this kind of stuff, it's awesome. Do you want to talk about these?
Right. This is our performance. As you can see, it's a very beautiful area that we performed in. It was kind of like right in the thick of everything there in the French Quarter, right in the middle of everything. So we had a lot of people coming by, stopping to watch us. So that was really exciting. Talk about that.
Okay, so on our 5th day, we came home. Not much more to say besides that. It was a great end to our trip. We really learned a lot and had a great time. And I'm really thankful for these music trips. They really teach us a lot.
And thank you to you too. We do appreciate your support with the music department, especially this tour to New Orleans. As you can tell, the kids really gained a lot of information and some lifelong experiences that they will take with them. So we thank you.
Matthew, stay there for a second, please.
Oh, man.
I can leave them.
I have to tell you the story behind taking his picture there. I had the privilege of going on this trip with these students, and it was an amazing trip. It was jam-packed from the time we got there till the time we left. I was exhausted and could have used a week off of work when we got back because there was basically no downtime until they got back to the hotel late at night. They're extremely well behaved. As you saw, a lot of educational opportunities. But Matthew's mother had asked me to make sure I got some good pictures of him while he was on the trip. So I had to wrap it up with a picture of him here tonight doing his presentation on the trip. So thank you also to George and Sam for putting this together for the students. You know, getting 130, 140 kids around is not an easy task. I also think we should recognize a family, Mark and Kelly Stover. They pulled the band trailer down from here to New Orleans with their truck and back. So it was like a 17, 18-hour drive for them each way. So kudos to them for being willing to do that. We ended up with beads on our trailer. We're not quite sure how we got New Orleans beads on top of the band trailer, but it was a great experience overall. So thank you for all your work, and great job, students, on that.
Mr. Eifert,
Yes.
I think it's also important to reiterate that other than covering the salaries of the coverage for the staff members who went on the trip, the district spent no money on this trip. All the money that was raised by the students through fundraising activities to go on this trip. So.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have EMB transportation presentation. We have the contract on the agenda tonight, but I know we have some folks from EMB that need to get buses organized tonight, so we wanted to move ahead with this and ask if there's any questions for our folks from EMB tonight on the contract that we'll be voting on later.
I have some questions. First of all,
Can you guys come up here so you can talk into the microphone, please? Thank you.
I know we talked about cameras on the buses. This will be on the stop sign, correct?
Correct.
Now, when would that be activated? When the reds go on, or when you put the yellows on and the stop sign comes out? Is that when that would be activated?
Actually, with the system we have now, it's on the whole time that the bus is running. So we have the whole video from when the bus leaves in the morning till when it parks in the afternoon.
Okay.
So
Very good.
It also has a panic button for the driver. So when it sees a red light violation, hit the panic button, it gives us a reading at the time that it happens. So when I'm looking at the telemetry, I see that red mark, I know that's where I need to go to find that violation.
Okay, the other thing is cell phones. Are you going to enforce the policy that all cell phones are turned off? Or how are you going to keep track of that the drivers won't get on them as they're driving?
Yeah, we've had the no cell phones on the school bus policies for a number of years, actually. And the way it's enforced now, basically for the most part, the cameras inside the bus capture a picture of the drivers. So when they're driving along, we can see, usually some part of them. So if they'd be on the cell phones, we should be able to see just basically on the videos. And also, being on a school bus, certainly they have a lot of attention at the schools. We go out and monitor them just behind the wheel as well. So yeah, but just to be clear, our policy is no cell phones, whether the bus is moving or whether it's sitting still, and whether they have kids on the bus or not. So they should not be using a cell phone sitting behind the wheel at all.
Now, if they're stopped, there's nobody on, and it's their layover or whatever,
Yes.
they can be on it then?
No.
Outside the vehicle or outside the wheel.
Yeah, we tell them if you can sit on the steps, stand on the step, but not behind the wheel for sure, not sitting in the vehicle.
Because I know, because we have the bus I drive,
Mhm.
they have a camera on the windshield that comes right onto the driver, so they can see if they're not seat belted. They can tell if they're not, if they're on their cell phone.
Mhm.
But they don't have we don't have the policy that if we're stopped on layover, we don't have to go outside the bus. We can be on the phone sitting there because we're not moving.
That way we don't have a gray area. That's why we do that, saying, can't be behind the wheel.
So how many cameras are we going to have on these buses? One in the front and one in the back?
You have 3 cameras right now, because the camera, we have them positioned now, they see the driver and see the front, and then the other ones see the back, and the new ones have side mount cameras. As we're putting different configurations, as the cameras change, we're changing the way we position them inside the vehicle.
And then you'll have the camera on the stop sign.
Correct, plus a camera facing forward. We find the forward-facing camera gives us a much better view of a lot of things, as a dash cam would be.
And I know the police department requires that if somebody passes the bus, you have to try and get who it was, whether it's a male or female, possible, what age, license plate, color of the vehicle.
Sure.
Hopefully with the camera, you may be able to tell if it's a male or female, but you should be able to get the license plate and the color and the make of the car.
It all depends on angles too.
I know.
Sometimes you can't, sometimes you can. We have a great rapport with the resource officer. He does all the violations for the district. So things come through us, go to him, and then he comes up and we go through video. And we count seconds. When it goes by the stop sign, we count the seconds. That's how we determine if the violation is valid or not.
And where's that going to be mounted on the stop sign?
It's mounted below the stop sign, so what it does, it faces upward, so when you go by it, you'll see a image of the stop sign with the lights going, and you'll see the license plate
Okay.
right underneath it.
Okay.
We currently have some in service now, we're currently using.
And you're going with the GPS system?
Correct.
Yes. And the school will have access to that as well, if you want it, to the GPS system.
Well, your GPS system, the main circuit should be at your location, right?
It's web-based.
It's web-based.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a website and you have a login.
I'm just going to make a comment. In the 6 years I've served on the board, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to put a face to the name that serves us and has served us so well over the years. So I just wanted to thank you for coming tonight and appreciate, thinking back, there's been times when we've needed to work with you folks to develop additional routes and make some alterations and changes to what you've done for us. And as my recollection serves me, it's always been a very favorable relationship that we've had with you. So thank you for that. And moving forward, I'm sure there will be more times that we need to work with you and develop changes to what we're currently experiencing and things like that. So it's nice to have you come and make your presence known so that we can ask you some questions and get to meet you. And, because what you guys do is very, very important. When it comes to safety and it comes to, transporting our kids, we all kind of rely on it. We all come to expect, we're going to get good service, and it is a healthy, cost to the district. It's one of the biggest costs that we have. So thank you for coming tonight. It's nice to actually meet you face to face.
How often do you rotate or put ones out of service and purchase new ones? How long do you keep buses on the road?
So right now, I think the oldest bus that we have on the route is 10 years old, and the average is probably about a 5-year average on the buses.
To follow up with Steve, I apologize, but I don't know your names. So maybe I see your faces now. It's good to have a face, but if maybe you could introduce yourselves.
Yep, I'm Sean Wolf, manager at Dover.
Mike Decker, manager at Dover. Collectively, between Sean and I, we have about 27 years of service at the Dover location. I have 15 years in, he has 12, so 27 years collectively doing what we're doing now.
Sometimes it seems like longer than that.
And I'd like to say my name is Vicki Wolfenwright. This is my husband Ed, and we have been in the school bus transportation business. We've had Dover. Well, his parents actually had Dover. So it's like well over 50 years.
I'd say 1955 we started calling Wellsville kids with Elizabeth Powell.
So we've had a long history, and it has been a very great relationship over all the years. We've been through several superintendents and business administrators, and we've had just a great rapport with everyone in the boards, and so we're very grateful for the opportunity to provide the transportation to you folks. And you're welcome to stop by the facility anytime, check the guys, see what's happening out there.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to add, we work very closely with Sean and Mike at all hours of the day and night. And I'll tell you, it's really important that we have full faith in them, because they come through every single time. Whether the weather's going to be bad, we're hearing from Mike at 3 o'clock in the morning. Just a little while ago, I got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning about a fire. I texted Mike to say, I got a call about a fire from EMS. He says, yeah, I'm there. So we have any issues with kids on the bus, the principals will tell you, they respond immediately. So they're wonderful, wonderful to work with.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have our first public comment period. This is for items on or off of the agenda. If you have anything you would like to comment on, please come to the microphones and state your name and address for the record. Okay. We'll let Mrs. Benko catch up with the technology. Okay. We'll move on to board president's communication. We did have an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel matters and matters related to grievances. And we also did have one item that is removed from tonight's agenda. So if you're looking at tonight's agenda, it is item 704. That will be coming back at another time for consideration. So that is off of tonight's agenda. So with that, I will move on to the approval of the minutes. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 19th, 2019 board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 21st, 2019 board planning meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? The motion carries. Okay, next we'll move on to our consent agenda for the evening. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve all items listed under the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
Wondering if we could talk a little bit about the 720, the Tower Services Unlimited proposal. The removal of those towers were for cell phone, was it cell phone or wireless or what?
No. They're tired of hearing me say it.
That's right.
Yeah, years ago, back in 1999 when I started, that was our wireless to all the schools. We had wireless connection between the buildings. But in 2010, 2011, something like that, we ended up getting fiber to all the schools. So the antennas were not required anymore, which meant the towers were just sitting there. The birds like them. You know, the birds sit up on there, and that's about it. They haven't been inspected. They should be inspected once a year. That's what was part of the service agreement with Sting Communications out of Lancaster. They're the ones that took care of our microwave wireless. And also the high school for the renovations, they said the tower has to be moved for the high school renovations. So we determined that this would be a great time to remove all the towers.
Were they ever struck by lightning or anything like that?
Not that I
Anything
remember,
sticking
no.
up like that?
No, not that I don't remember it ever happening. But they were here before 1999. So they've been here up on the buildings for a while.
And how many of them are being removed?
There's each at the elementaries and the high school. And then at Skytop Trail, Skytop, the big tower there, we had another, just the microwave dish is up there that was pointing to Crawltown. It had to go from the high school to Skytop and then to Crawltown. That's how we got, it's line of sight, the microwave. So they're going to take the microwave dish off the tower on Skytop.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Tracy, this is to follow up, some of what we were talking about before. I won't get into specifics, but some of the 50% things, is that something that's going to be addressed?
The
Yeah, the intramurals, the 50% split.
We will, we'll review that.
Yes.
We'll review that, and if there is a change that needs to be made,
Yeah.
then we will do
We're
that
gonna
at
do that.
the next meeting.
So,
Okay.
yeah, we're going to review, we will talk with her and we will find out. And then,
Okay.
yeah, we'll
All
fix
right.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
Just to make
Yes,
sure before we-
absolutely, yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, just wanted to note that there were two donations that we will be accepting tonight. The first is a wheelchair donation from the Physician Supply Company, and then an additional $500 donation to be used at the Weigelstown Library from the family of Dolores Krebs. So we're very grateful for those donations and thank them for that. So if there's no other questions or discussions, we'll move forward with the vote. And the motion carries. Okay. Now we'll move on to our human and fiscal resources category. First item on the agenda is our preliminary budget for the next school year. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the preliminary budget for public inspection as per the enclosure.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? I believe Mrs. Benko has a short presentation for us.
Okay, this is the full presentation that I gave the last time with some changes. However, I will try to go very quickly just on the highlights of what has changed, and maybe just visit some items that I had gotten some questions on over the past month. All of the board members hopefully received their board packets last Thursday. We had them delivered to your place of residence. So just going through the history of the financial operations, you'll see that the 2019 numbers changed, and the projected deficits, it's at $1.6 million. Keep in mind, about $1 million of that is the monies that we transferred from the general fund to the capital projects fund. That was not originally in the budget, but we moved those monies so we could be able to continue to save money for our projects down the road. So when we're looking at it, it's about a $600,000 deficit that we are looking at right now for 2019. And of course, as we go through the next month or two, that number will probably change. It is up about $400,000 from last month because through our analysis of cyber charter expenditures, and with the last couple months of the year, those invoices really start to come in and reconciliations happen. We're looking at an increase in our cyber charter costs, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So none of our budgeting goals or objectives have changed. Like I said last month, we strive to meet those objectives and goals, and I think we have done that through this budget presentation. So when we're talking about the components, I know I had a question on guidance services and moving the guidance secretary from a 10-month position to a 12-month position. Mrs. Krim, would you like to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, 2 years ago, we had two people in that position. We had the CTC director, secretary, and the guidance secretary. So they were two separate people, two full-time positions. When the one secretary retired, we combined the two positions, and we thought we would be okay with 10 months. The concern is that students are in that guidance office at the high school all summer long. And with schedule changes and college applications and everything that they do, and a reminder that the guidance counselors don't work all summer long, it is really important that we have someone staffing that guidance department all summer. So we feel very strongly that that needs to be a 12-month position.
And along with that, we brought down the amount on the professional guidance summer hours as we looked at it a little bit further, and really thought that we could minimize the amount of hours that they are in there during the summer hours. We feel that we gave them enough time between for some planning, and also through Mr. Wassler, he's giving some of his summer money time also. So we did knock that down by about half. This is the autistic support class again. I don't know that there were very many questions about that, but please know that we are not pulling any classes back right now from the IU. I think
as was reported in the
newspaper. In the newspapers, we are not pulling any classes back. That is just an additional class that we have to create this year.
Because all of these students are aging out of elementary or are moving to the intermediate school next year.
I don't think I had any questions on technology, but again, if I just revisit the secretarial support for technology, we again did not replace two people through retirements a couple years ago, and now that we have 3,500 iPads almost in the district, and also all of the 500 staff devices and more coming, it is important to be able to have somebody in there that can do the inventory and the purchasing, deal with the iPad handouts and assigning courseware and things like that to these students. Currently, we have one secretary that works with technology, facilities and buildings and grounds, and also the business office work. So she is very much overloaded, and we would like, we were proposing that full-time support. The full-time resource officer is staying on there. We changed the custodian, or we proposed the custodians. I don't believe there were any questions on that. All of the salary increases that we put into the budget are based on contractual requirements. So those align with the Act 93 agreement, the professional agreement, other administrative agreements, and the support professionals agreement. So the other thing that changed over the course of the last month, as I talked about earlier with the analysis of our cyber charter expenses, it was about a $200,000 increase from what we had originally budgeted back in March. So a little bit of guidance on this and background information. In 2017, 18, and prior to that, the rates for cyber charters were based on actual expenditures from the prior year. So when I would go to do my new rates for 2017-18, I was basing them on our actual expenditures from 16-17, and that was a good gauge on where we might end up the next year. And that was all per PDE guidance. However, in March of 2018, PDE rescinded the guidance which dated back to 2012, utilizing the actual expenditures, and now their guidance says that we must use budgeted expenditures to calculate the tuition rates for cyber charter. So they also indicated that they would have a hands-off approach, and they would no longer be involved in publishing the tuition rates or anything like that. So it was, hey, here you go, now use budgeted expenditures. So right now, for 18-19, I had to use 17-18 expenditures to give to the cyber charter school, or the budgeted expenditures to give to cyber charter schools as our rates. So you'll see how some of those changes happened here. And this is a little hard to read, I apologize. But not only are we dealing with rising rates because they're originally budgeted numbers, but we're also dealing with a rising number of students. So you'll see in 2017-18, our regular ed students were at 82 at cyber charters, and special ed was at 25. And the PDE 363 that was based on actual expenditures for the prior year was at 10,800 for regular ed and 23,300 for special ed. So as we moved into the 18-19 year, and now we are doing it on budgeted amounts, and we have 100 students in regular ed and 29. So that's an increase of almost 21% of students. And compounded on top of that, now that the PDE is on budgeted expenditures, our expenditures went up to $11,563 for regular ed and almost $25,000 for special ed. In the budgeting process, I went ahead and tried and calculated out the 1920 PDE 363, that's what they call the tuition rate form, based on the number of students we have now, hoping that we won't go above and beyond that 130 number, but we're still looking at the regular ed number staying at about 11,000, and the special ed number is actually going up to 26,000. And those calculations take into consideration all of our budgeted numbers, so it's really hard to, we talk about projections. I'm projecting some of these numbers through the budgeting process, and it affects me the next year. So we have to really look hard at how we're budgeting these numbers. Assuming all of these students were year-round, which they're not, and we know that right now is a big time that we see some of these kids coming through. So keep in mind, some of them might be in cyber charter for 2 months, some of them might be in for 12 months. We didn't get an average life on those students, but for comparison apple to apple, 17-18, our cyber charter budget was at 1.5. Our actual came in at 1,298,000. 18-19, our budget was at 1.6, and as we look to the analysis, it's sitting at about 1.7, 1.8 almost. And then 19-20, it's going to be approximately $1.8 million. So that is the justification of why we had to add some funds back into the budget for cyber charter. The next steps on this, I'll let Tracy talk to, but from my recommendation to some of the administrators and my coworkers, and also to you guys, advocacy at the state level for cyber charter tuition reform is huge. I know that's one of my focuses as I go into, PASBO and things, because they're the ones that have to change it. The legislature has to change it for us to get some relief on these costs. So as you're talking to your peers, if you need any information on cyber charter reform through PSBA, whatever it might be, please don't hesitate to ask me, for some of this information, or if you have any questions, okay? So I'm gonna let Mrs. Kroom then talk about our next steps as a district as we go forward.
So, as Jen was saying, currently there are two bills up for committee consideration that it is looking like, both one in the House and one in the Senate, it is looking like they will not be passed before this year's budget. Now, that just came out today. So, so it looks like we are not going to get relief from this year. So what we are going to do as a district, and this is an issue in every district, but we do have a cyber school. We have a cyber school that SMITA runs. And to be honest with you, we kind of throw it together because we do have an online cyber model that we have purchased. It was purchased years ago. And SMITA works with the high school students. It's only available to grades 7 through 12. We don't have a lot of students in it, but we do have a couple students in it. This new law basically says that if you have a cyber charter school, then students cannot go outside your district. And you don't have to pay this amount. But at this time, that wouldn't even help us because we really do not have a cyber charter school. We could never manage that many students in cyber charter schools. So what we are doing is Dr. Maloney and I have already set up a meeting with one elementary principal and a high school assistant and an intermediate school assistant and special education. And we are going to brainstorm and come up with how we bring these costs down, how we bring kids back to how do we improve our cyber first? How do we bring them back? How do we man it? Right now, again, we only start at 7th grade. We have to look at kindergarten and up. And that's hard because fundamentally people do not believe in elementary and kindergartners being in cyber school, but we have that happening. So we have to look at that. So in the next couple weeks, we are going to meet. We are going to talk about it. We are going to put a plan together. And our hope is that if this law does pass and we have to bring these people, all of these kids, we get to bring them back into the district, we might need to, it'll be plenty of savings to be able to fund a position to run a cyber school. We are not there yet. We need to realize some savings first before we can do that. But I will tell you, and I'm sure SMITA would agree, it's really hard to man a cyber school and do a full-time job. These are typically not students who want to be in the school. They aren't always being successful in cyber school, and you have to bring them in. Bobby Strasbaugh also has a lot of experience, and she will tell you that you have to be here for them after school. You have to let them come in and work with you, and we are just not set up that way. So we're going to get set up that way, and we're going to figure out how to get it done, and over the next year, we're going to work very hard at figuring this out. And then hopefully when this law does come through and changes, we will be in a position where we can bring these students back and have our own cyber school. So, but just some data I'd like to share with you that was actually released today. School districts pay cyber charter schools in Pennsylvania more than $463 million a year. More than 100 school districts have tuition payments over $1 million a year. That is unbelievable. And again, just to point out, that special education cost is for this year. It's going to be $26,000 next year. And as we talked about it, and if you're familiar at all with cyber charter schools, we're not exactly sure what that difference in cost is because we know it's not services. So we absolutely, on special ed, know we can bring those costs down. But we have to get together and figure this out. And that's what we're going to do. In the next year, we're going to figure this out and bring the cost down.
Okay, so as of today, this is what our budget looks like. We're projecting our opening general fund balance to be $17.8 million. Budgeted revenues sit at $63.5 million, giving us available resources for the year of $81.2 million. Our expenditures sit at $65.6 million, giving us a projected ending general fund balance it's hard to believe it's 2020, but it will be, $15.7 million. So our budget deficit at this point sits at $2,125,687. On Thursday, we have RBC coming in through some analysis of our bond issues, our outstanding bond issues. We have them coming in to talk about refunding one of our bonds. That could gain us about $140,000 savings for next fiscal year. If we can get that in, hopefully through in the low interest rate environment right now, we can get that deficit under $2 million. So hopefully we can capitalize on some of those savings. Okay, so the rest of this is pretty much unchanged. No new information from the last time or two times that you've seen it. The budget includes the 1.21% millage increase, which funds the yearly increase for the building project. It's about an average $32 per taxpayer. So next steps, we hope to get board approval on the preliminary budget tonight. I will then post the preliminary budget for public inspection over the next month. And we will continue to look at our numbers. Again, we are just constantly doing analysis of where we're gonna end up, where we think we might be next year. So hopefully we'll come back with a little bit of a brighter picture next month. But we'll see. So do I have any questions at this point?
Yes, the average tax increase, is that include, is it just $32 or is there more with the budget added on? With our deficit?
It's just the $32 for the increase
For
to
the
fund
average.
the project. Yes, there is nothing else in there. The 1.21% includes the 0.27 mils that we had planned for the whole way through planning for the building project.
That will cover our budget then also.
Well, it doesn't cover the $2.1 million deficit, no.
What's that projected at? What percentage?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
You figure it's 1.2 for the building project.
Yes.
What would the total be then if the way it stands now?
We didn't include a tax increase to cover the $2 million. We're funding it through our fund balances.
So we're
The
not-
Act 1 index would allow us to raise taxes up to 3.1%, and that would give us additional revenue of about probably $1.8 million. But I'm not sure the board supports a tax increase that large.
Okay, thank you.
The chart is included there, so you can see each level of increase and what it would gain us in tax revenue.
Last month when we had talked about the renovations to the current high school,
Uh-huh.
I thought there was a potential of maybe one more mill with the refunding of that, but that didn't
Sorry.
show up. It was, I thought it went from like 27 to 28 with the use of that, but right now you have 27 in there.
Mhm.
So is that where we're actually landing then with the?
Right now, we put the 0.27 in next year, or there's a couple years in the schedule that we're still at 0.27,
Oh, okay,
and then
okay.
it went to
And
the
it-
0.28.
okay. All right, that's right, I forgot that was
Mhm.
the case. I had 2.8 in my mind.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to note here that you're using current year's state funding in your budget planning.
Correct.
That doesn't always pan out that way.
No.
In recent years, it has gone up some, so it softened that deficit. So this is kind of like worst case scenario in the planning process. In the last few years, we've looked at deficits in the past as well in the past few years, and through everybody working hard together to make ends meet, and through maybe some additional funding that has come in, we've not realized those deficits. So we do, that's kind of the beauty of having some fund balance to work with. You can afford maybe to take a little bit more of a risk that funding won't necessarily increase like it has in the past. But, you know, this is kind of like worst case scenario of, you know, if all things pan out exactly as you projected it, there would be about a $2 million deficit, which we have fund balance to balance the budget at that point if needed. So the commitment that we made last year was, you know, the 8 years of funding the building project was an increase of 0.27 mils each year along the way. So we've already kind of committed to that. So that's why you have that at that rate right there, which is about a $32 increase. So without any additional tax implications, then that's the part that we had already committed to, more or less. So.
Anybody else? I think it's important to note for everybody in the room and those who would be watching this publicly that tonight's vote is just to basically approve the preliminary budget for public inspection. It's not the approval of the actual budget itself, and I know the administration is going to work to sharpen their pencils a little bit between now and the actual vote too, to take a look at some things here. So tonight is just to post it for public inspection. Any other questions or discussion at this point? Okay, hearing none. Mrs. Benko?
Oh, I'm sorry, I never took the presentation down.
Okay, and the motion carries. Thank you. I apologize. I got so excited thinking about the budget presentation that I completely skipped over introducing our new head basketball coach who is here with us tonight. So, Mr. Falco, if you wanted to stand up so everybody can recognize you and welcome you. So, thank you. He has assured us we will have all undefeated seasons coming forward. So, welcome.
No pressure.
Okay, we'll move on our human and fiscal resources category. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the transfer of Alyssa Kaltrider to Dover High School Assistant Principal.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Okay, Mrs. Benko? Okay, and the motion carries. And I believe Mrs. Kaltrider is here with us tonight. So congratulations on your new role. Okay, we'll move on to our Capital Project Steering Committee. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the bid from Tecta America East for the high school roof replacement project.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'm sure we have questions for Mr. Nelson. So Mr. Nelson, if you want to give us the lowdown on this.
Okay, this is part of our plan to start doing some things at the current high school to get ready for our renovation next year. So we wanted to replace, we're hitting the high spots first with the roofing. With this round, we're going to replace the gym roof, kind of all what I call the ancillary roofs next to the gym, like the one out over the lobby, the one back over the area between the athletic director's office, his office, the auxiliary gym, that kind of stuff. So we're going to replace all that roofing this summer. And then we're also looking at right now to get an infrared survey done on the rest of the high school roof to pinpoint areas that we could have or may have or do have some leakage here and there. But definitely not the whole roof. It'll just be spot treatment. So this was the best of 3 quotes we had. 2 of them were real close together within about $20,000, and one of them was Guy definitely made a mistake because it was way out there. So,
Questions for Mr. Nelson? Okay, Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. Next, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the enclosed proposal from ELA Engineering for design services for required intersection improvements at Canal Road and Intermediate Avenue and Mayfield Drive and Carlisle Road.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? I'm sure Mr. Nelson can update us on this
Okay.
too.
So normally you would incorporate this into your project as you started. But I know you've all heard about a potential development behind the intermediate school called Dovertown Apartments or Dovertown Townhouses, whatever. So we didn't include it in our upfront costs and our upfront strategy because the township and the developer for Dovertown approached us and said, we may be developing this, and if we're going to develop it, we're going to have to make changes to the intersection too, so why don't we just wait and go together and do it all at one time? Well, Dovertown and Dover Borough, or Dover Township, I'm sorry, have not proceeded. We're at the point now where we have to do something or we're not going to get it done by the time school opens, and we cannot open school. It's in our permit. We cannot open school without these intersection improvements. So we're kind of out there. We have to do it on our own now. Dovertown kind of fell through, and Dover Township doesn't want to pay for anything. So basically what we're talking about when we say intersection improvements is we have to put a turn lane on Canal Road. As you're coming into Dover, we have to put a left turn lane, and we have to put a right turn lane on Route 74 out at the end of Mayfield. So all we're doing is painting the lines when you comes right down to it. But in order to paint those lines, it's about a 1-year process to get it through PennDOT. And that's why we have to start now. We can't wait another 6 months on Dovertown or Dover Township. So if Dovertown goes through, who knows if it will or if it won't, they're going to have to they're going to come back and make improvements to the same intersections we're doing now, but it's going to be at their total expense, not at ours.
Where is this left turn lane going in?
If you're coming on Canal Road towards town, like past the township building coming down the hill, there'll have to be a left turn lane to go into Intermediate Ave.
There's space for that?
Mm-hmm.
I had the same question or thought about Mayfield. You said we'd have to put a left turn
On 74 as you're,
as you're going south, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Has to be a right turn, no left turn lane to pull in there?
no, I'm sorry, I'm going out of town when you're on 74. You're going out of town, left turn into Mayfield, I'm sorry.
Again, there's
Yeah.
enough room there? There's enough for 3 lanes
It
on
is.
that?
It is. It is. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is. So, and
And there's enough room
Yes.
for 3 lanes on, going up through there?
Yep. Now, not on Mayfield. We're not doing anything on Mayfield. This is on Route 74 and on Canal Road. So, and we shouldn't, according to what I've been told, we shouldn't lose any parking on 74 that's currently there. We should be okay.
Anybody else?
Is this a huge expense to us as a district, or is this just a big time thing that we're talking
A
about?
little of both.
Okay.
It's not cheap. I don't have the numbers in front of me. For the study alone is not cheap. It's 32? I didn't bring that paper. I think it's like 32,000 just for the study.
37.
37, okay. I was close. But yeah, it's expensive to do because you're dealing with PennDOT. We're basically starting over with a traffic study. It's a lot of paperwork, and it's a lot of submissions and studies.
So the biggest cost is the study?
The study.
Okay.
Putting
But
the paint
blinds-
down is
okay.
not that big a deal.
But you never know with PennDOT.
I mean, when I say not that big a deal, it's probably gonna be 20 to 25,000, but it's not gonna be, you know, hundreds. So, and you have to do, you don't have a choice, you have to do this stuff.
So this is taking another study that's necessary. Wasn't there already a study going forth?
There
already
was, but
happening?
there needs to be some permitting done that's gonna require a second study.
We were supposed to be in a joint study with
With
Dover Township
Dover
and
Township.
Dover Town, and we have not seen the results yet of that study, and we have asked for them, and there are no results.
There
from
are
that
no
study
results.
right now.
So I think I don't remember the number, we chipped in $8,000,
It's about 7, I think, yeah.
7 or 8,
Yeah.
something like that, about 2 years ago. Back when Mr. Cherry was still here, so that's about how long ago it was. And Dover Township and Dover Town and us were supposed to be going to a joint comprehensive traffic study. And every time we asked for a result or where the process was at, we got the same story. Well, we're not there yet. We're not done. We're not finished yet. We haven't started this. We haven't started. So I just heard from someone, because I think I got the email from Ben, that they told the traffic study people to stop. They didn't want to do any more, and it's not finished. So I guess we're going to have to see.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back and request a refund of the monies that we
Right.
paid to them.
Because we didn't get anything for our money at all.
Is there any chance that a new study might reveal different results that, you know, may?
Probably
may-
not, no.
Anybody else? Okay, Mrs. Benko?
Oh, sorry. If you could all vote again, I apologize. Thank you.
And the motion carries. Next, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve change order number 1 for Low Bar Inc. for the amount of $9,696.26.
Second.
Mr. Nelson?
Okay, this is actually a culmination of about 7 change orders. So they just lumped them all together. So let me kind of walk through them one at a time. The first one was when they did the design, they missed 3 GFCI receptacles underneath sinks that, I call them gang sinks. They're real big. They're kind of round or arch-shaped in the front. And they missed those receptacles, which means they missed the wiring, they missed the breakers, they missed the whole 9 yards. So that's the first one. And it came in, and mainly they're out in the ag shop and the CTE areas where they're at. That one came in at $1,250. The next one was for, it was a bunch of cabling. We have a system in this new school called Watt Stopper. And what it allows us to do, it's all LED lighting, but it'll allow us to trim lighting during daylight hours. When I say trim, basically, right now the lights are on 100%, but if the sun's coming in the windows, it senses it and it turns the lights down. Kind of dims them automatically to save even more money. It also allows in each classroom area, there's like a switch on the wall with different buttons on it, kind of like the switch at the door over here with the different buttons. And you can program that if the teacher's going to have the whiteboard on, it shuts the lights off in the front and dims the ones in the back, or puts them all on high, or puts them all on half, whatever. It's kind of programmable. So they had missed some areas with the Watt Stopper in some of the cafeteria area. So that was a change order for $3,107.81. And the next one is, actually, it's a combination of taking out 3 breakers and adding some wiring to the shop area for some equipment we didn't plan on, for $1,636.88. The next one is, we had some fixtures in the cafeteria area that we realized we probably didn't need as many lights in there as they had. It's a credit for $1,427.94. The next one was to add a fixture, or to taking away another fixture along with the associated wiring in the area near the auditorium. It's a credit of $1,722.89. So that's the culmination of all those change orders. With this change order for $9,696, we currently have only spent $18,139 on change orders total for this project, which is pretty phenomenal. I know, Mr. DeLauder, you deal with this stuff, so you know, as far along as we are, I would have said that number would have been a lot higher than what it is, but this is pretty good. It's pretty good. So I don't have a lot of change orders hanging out there. I have 3 of them right now. 2 of them are relatively small, and there's one credit that it's not as big as I think it ought to be, so we're arguing over it. So, but so any questions? I kind of went through that quickly.
Okay, Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Okay, next we'll move on to safe and supportive schools. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the contract with E&B Transportation.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. Moving on to a few reports, we have our Dover Eagle Foundation update at this time. The foundation is now up to 13 board members, and they are continuing to look at fundraising plans and opportunities and developing a strategy for that. They are also looking at Give Local York for next year. I don't know if you've heard about that program that a lot of nonprofits in the community will be participating in May. It's a little too fast for us to get into it this year, so they're looking at next year. Working on their bylaws and some of the operational details related to that. Is there anything you wanted to add,
The only
Mrs.
other
Kern?
thing that they want to pick that big fundraiser that defines them yearly. So I know they have a great fundraising committee that's working very hard. So we're kind of excited to see how that comes out.
Any questions? Okay, Mrs. Maley, the Unity Council report.
Okay, so we started off with an activity called Sphere of Influence, and just to kind of get a sense of who we surround ourselves with in our daily lives. So, you know, for some it was an eye-opener in terms of, you know, what type of population of people do we interact with, age-wise, race, and, you know, kind of who's in our core group. So that was an interesting exercise to go through. We were hoping to have Central York's diversity specialist with us, but she was unable to be there. So Kirsten gave us a report on some of the things that she had learned by talking with her about how they go about implementing diversity and unity kinds of programs within their school district. We were all assigned to a subcommittee. There are 3 of them. There's the Policy and Curriculum Subcommittee, the Professional Development Subcommittee, and the Culture and Climate Subcommittee. So we'll be breaking down a little bit more and working on specific items. We also talked about, with the IS, how they have begun building their building level councils, unity councils, and taking some tips from there so that we can pull them into our other buildings as well. There were 2 easy activities that were provided to get them started. There's going to be Dress Down Day for Diversity and the Race Against Racism. And Amy Parker and Kirsten Johnson will create a Schoology course for all building level councils with resources and activities to be used. So anything that we talk about and do can be put on Schoology, the teachers can use it. And we had building representatives from every building on council, and they're kind of tasked at this point to take whatever we're doing in Unity Council and take it back to their schools and implement it. So they will be responsible for the Dress Down for Diversity and the Race Against Racism. And then we talked about the schedule and structure for next year.
Questions for Mrs. Maley? Mrs. Cream, did you want to add anything?
No,
Okay.
she got everything.
Thank you. York Adams Academy, Mr. Emig.
Currently, Dover has 12 seats. 8 of them are currently filled. We still have 4 open seats. Our next meeting was supposed to be April 30th, but due to the YCAL banquet, that meeting will not take place.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Emig? Okay, Mr. DeLauder, York County School of Technology.
We did have, this month, we did have a student from Dover, Vashti Overmiller, who was named one of their Students of the Month, and they were recognized at last month's meeting. And then the only other thing I would report is for their building project, bids are due May 1st, and the authority, we will be looking at and voting on those bids at our meeting on May 2nd. So I'll have an update hopefully at the May meeting.
Questions for Mr. DeLauder? Okay, Mr. Deschaux, LIU.
I do not have anything to report. Last month was my last month on the board, so.
And I'd like to just add that Mrs. Geyer and I are representing the district with the LIU Special Education Steering Committee. So we are both very anxious and excited to get in there and really learn how we're billed and to kind of have some conversation about all of those decisions. Right, Mrs. Geyer? We're ready. We'll make you proud.
Any questions? Okay, Mr. Rawhauser, Legislative, York Learning Center, and anything else?
Okay, I have nothing on legislative. On the York Learning Center, the stage repair has been done for the curtains because the ropes were bad, and so it don't fall down in some ways on stage. It will be completed in time for their graduation. Working on a lighting project. Crabtree and Rohrbach are going to do a study of the school at no cost to see what the future holds as to whether we should sign future contracts to stay in there, what the upkeep's going to be. They're looking at entrance security. One of the things that caught me by surprise, I didn't hear nothing here, or I missed it, lead water testing is a requirement. And did we do any testing, or did we sign a paper that we didn't do any? The school board has to sign off.
Yeah, we tested August. I can't remember the exact date, but we tested in August. We followed all the rules that PD set forth to test. We did about 7 different locations in every building and found no detectable lead anywhere in the water.
Okay, well, it was something that
Yep.
caught my
And
attention.
we'll check every year. We'll check different locations. We did what we thought was the high concentration areas like kitchens, water fountains and stuff near gyms. We sort of picked those kind of places first to check. But we found none, not in the high school, not in the intermediate school, nowhere. Now, we didn't check Crawltown, but we don't have kids up there, so. But other than that, we checked all the buildings.
Okay.
So.
Any other?
I think that they were put on the website too. Yeah, I think the results were put on the website.
Well, okay. On the Dover Township and Dover Comprehensive Plan, there's a meeting on May 14th open to the public at the Dover Township Community Building. And on May 15th, there's one here at the Dover Elementary School, open to the public open for comments So that probably could be put out on our phone thing on, for the Dover Elementary, well, either one. Because I've seen with the invitation I got tonight, it could tie up a lot of Dover people on the 15th of May. And that's all I have.
Any
Can
questions?
I say something about the legislative report? I went in to see Seth Grove concerning this Governor Wolf's age proposition he wants to make about lowering the school age. Anyway, and he started talking about a pilot program that he's putting together where he would, instead of having schools take PSSA tests, he instead would have this pilot program that schools would use Study Island to benchmark kids 4 times a year, and then you would use that data to put the children in whatever programs that need to be put into to address their needs. And I said, I think we're already doing something like that. But then again, I think I know his children go to Dover, so I'm sure he's heard that at plenty of parent-teacher conferences. But, you know,
And
maybe
we
we
use
can become
Study
one of the
Island,
pilot
so,
programs
yeah,
and we can
he's
show what
familiar
we've
with it,
got.
yeah. Yep.
One thing I forgot was our committee voted in favor of hiring a resource officer for next year for Ender at the school. But the other committee had a vote, and what I was told, they didn't vote on it that night, so I don't know where that stands.
Anybody else? Thank you. Mrs. Brinton, PSBA, you're out there?
I'm still here. The big thing that PSBA has is the Advocacy Day 2019, which is April 29th, and they're addressing some of the issues that Mrs. Kroom had spoken about, the cyber charter issues, reform for tuition payments for the cyber charter schools is an issue they're advocating for, the bills that she was referring to. They're also going to be advocating for PlanCon reform, education funding increases. There will be a tour of the Capitol, and if you're interested in joining, they will be partnering with the Association of Intermediate Units, the Association of School Administrators, and go to the PSBA's website to sign up. And that's all I have there.
Any questions for Mrs. Brinton? Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Herman, the Dover Industrial Development Authority.
Okay, not much. Just to let everybody know, the Lidl's still coming. Everybody's worried about that. And they own the property, so we should be good with that. But they're saying another 24 to 36 months before they start on it. Oh, it'll be here. And my next meeting's tomorrow night.
There's a Lidl going in across from York College right now. Maybe they're waiting to
Yes.
see the success of that before they actually
Well,
do
they
it.
were supposed to do 3 in York County. The one in East York is out now. So I think they're going to focus on that one. And then I understood, we were told that ours was the first one. But then, yeah, things kind of got changed around. But it's still on the books to be here. So.
Questions for Mrs. Herman? Okay, Mrs. Kroom, Superintendent's Report.
All right, as we're looking forward towards reconfiguration of the elementary schools in a couple of years, Dr. Maloney and I have set up meetings, morning meetings at each of the elementary schools. We want to talk to the teachers, we want to get their feedback, we want to get their take. A reminder that we do have some parent feedback already and community feedback from our budget survey. So we really do want to get their concerns, and so we know how to address them. So we are definitely moving forward with that. Mrs. Herman, you had asked about attendance the other day, and you were correct that the high school does have the largest absentee rate of all of the schools. But I will tell you that now remember, our absentee rate is we receive that through PIMS. So we put it into PIMS, and it kind of just populates itself. Well, we've learned, Mrs. Weekland has learned that we have not been reporting everything correctly. So we're going to meet with her, Dr. Maloney and I are going to meet with her next week to really look at some of the things we're doing wrong. For example, we have students who are on time to school and are 5 minutes late to first period. And they're marked late, and that makes them late for the whole day. So we know that's not the case. So that is absolutely one thing we're doing is looking at our tracking. But some other things we are looking at, Mr. Emick talked about YAA. We are really using YAA. We think it's a wonderful resource. YAA has been working with us to be more flexible in letting kids go there. These are for students who really truly do not want to come to the high school and do not want to be in school, and they are finding YAA very motivating. So we definitely are using that. We are also looking at possibly changing our surf passes policy. We currently allow parents to take their students out of school 10 days a year for vacation. That's half a month. And if you add another couple days of sick, that is a lot of vacation days. And so we are looking at some local districts. Some are at 10 and many have moved to 5. So we're just going to look at that, and we'll look at that through policy, and we'll see if that is going to help us as well. But we do have high absentee rate, and we do have to do something about that. PSSAs did begin this week. We're very excited. Started very well. Everyone's doing a great job. Kids are working really hard. Reminder to check your calendar for all of it is that time of year. All of the events, music events, end of year events, athletic events. Next month, on Tuesday is our annual retirement dinner. We will send a reminder out to you, but executive session's at 5 and dinner is at 6. And today, quickly, if you have not signed up to go to the YCal dinner, you can do it today. That is Tuesday, April 30th, 5:45. Tonight is the last night. Chuck and I have a van. You are welcome to drive with us. We will leave here at 5 o'clock. Sound good? And I will email you to see if those I know have registered. I want to say we have about 7 people attending the dinner, so we are well represented this year. That'll be nice. That's all.
Okay. Questions for Mrs. Kroom? Okay, anybody else have anything for the agenda tonight? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our last public comment period, the 2-minute period for items on or off of the agenda. If you have anything you'd like to say, please come to the microphones. Okay, future meetings. This Thursday, we have our board committee meetings beginning at 6 o'clock p.m. and our board planning meeting at 7 p.m. And then our next board action meeting will be May 21st at 7 p.m. If there's nothing else, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, yes? Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you. Board members, we're going